Hello, me again. Welcome to the Medicine Show. In order for you to know how the universe slash multiverse works, this is a necessary part of that knowledge base. It's essential for any transcendent being to have a firm grasp of this. I'm talking about responsibility. It's named responsibility because it is the same. Now, we throw that word around and we think we know what it means. That's the problem. We think we know what it means, but few actually know what it means. And if you don't know what it means, then you're probably not responsible. In one sense, you might think that that is a great place to be, not being responsible or not being to blame. That is not an enviable position to be in, and I'll tell you why. At its heart, responsibility and irresponsibility have the word response. And the reason is because people who are aware and conscious respond correctly to the events in their encounters in their life experience. People who do not respond are unresponsive, or asleep, or in a coma. People who do not respond correctly are irresponsible. In either case, if you are unresponsive or incapable of responding correctly according to the law, then somebody else has responsibility for you and can act against you and is given the lawful power to do so, even against your will. Now, let me give you an example that's easy enough for you to understand. You're walking down the side of a busy highway, and you see a toddler sitting in the shoulder of this busy highway. And you see no drivers stopping, and you see no other man or woman around. And you look down at the child. Now, immediately you have to think about what you're going to do. Do you walk away and assume that, hey, the parent is somewhere and you just don't see him? Do you assume that the drivers will see the child and stop? Do you assume the child will not crawl out into the middle of the highway? This example demonstrates something called the duty to exercise care. That duty is a responsibility of people who are competent. Now, if you walk away and that child gets injured and a driver saw you there walking away, you have a problem. You fail to exercise care. There was a being in your environment, the toddler, who was not capable of making competent, responsible decisions, and you allowed that child to come to harm through your inaction. Now, that's an easy example to see. However, those people themselves are not responsible and competent. Now, let's just say you saw the child there and you reach down and grab him. Of course, the child doesn't want to leave and it kicks and screams, so do you care? You grab them anyway. You don't have to spank them or hurt them, but you're going to remove them from that situation where they could, be in danger. That's your responsibility as responsible and competent people. Most people could see that, and most people would do that. However, You need to start looking at yourself like the little toddler, because in law, that's where most of you find yourself. If you're wondering why people get the power to force you to do things against your will, it's because they have judged you to be incompetent. Now, what does competent mean in the first place? When you look it up, it means someone who's capable of competing or offering some sort of angle in order to gain a superiority over another. It's somebody who's in competition, who has the capability, the means, and the mind to actually formulate a response to the environment or to other competitors. If you are incompetent, that means the opposite, meaning that, in a competition, you've surrendered. You've given up. You do not have the ability to respond or the will to respond, and you simply allow your opponent to take over because you have surrendered and given up. Now, with the winner come the spoils, so of course, if you surrendered, he has all the power over you. So understanding what responsibility is actually pretty important. Because if you're not responding, or you're responding in an incorrect way, and from what I've observed, most people are in that position, then they don't have any power. If I'm talking to you and you're not listening, or you're staring away from you, and I'm bringing something right in front of your face to your attention, and you're incapable of answering, or you say something that's not pertinent to our communication, then you're incompetent or insane, meaning that you have an unclean mind. Let's just say your process is screwed. Okay, at which point they I can easily judge you. Hey, you're out of your mind. And as a responsible man, you gain no power over me. Because irresponsible people do not enjoy that power. Why? Because they're incompetent. They've given up the fight. And I enjoy all the power over them. That doesn't mean that because I am responsible and others are not responsible, that gives me the ability to abuse them or treat them in such a way that is, let's say, not reasonable. They're to be treated, in a decent way, as I would want to be treated. Say if I fell asleep, or let's say, for instance, I injured myself and became unconscious. That doesn't give people around me the permission to take my wallet or abuse me in any way. Why? Because responsible people exercise care. They have a duty to, as responsible. And if they don't do that, then they are irresponsible. And they suffer. That's how you, get delivered into the hands of evil men. Criminals. We come here to the multiverse to learn certain things, to experiment with certain things. The importance of responsibility is one of those vital lessons that we need to know. The best way to learn those things is to experience what it's like to be irresponsible or unresponsive, and see how life proceeds in that environment. I assure you, if you are irresponsible in this world, your experience is painful. It's nothing but ceaseless suffering. Why? Because that's not the way you're supposed to be. And if you are, and your life is suffering, and it's due to other people, perhaps those other people are not really evil. Maybe they're just trying to help you understand why it's important for you to be responsible. So respond correctly. If you choose not to respond, do it consciously. That may be the correct response. However, do it consciously. Now realize the only time you can actually respond is right now. You cannot respond in the past, and you cannot respond in the future. Why? Because there is no power there. Oh, you could respond in your mind or in your thoughts, but that manifests no change in your experience until you overtly respond. I've found, well, the more effective responses to what I see out there is simply standing your ground. To just simply say, I see what you're doing. I don't agree. I don't consent. And stand right there. You leave the choice to the other people who are what? Irresponsible? Or if they're responsible, you have nothing to be afraid of. See, I don't have to worry about criminals, and I don't have to worry about the irresponsible. You know? I don't have to worry about the responsible because they're acting responsibly. I can engage them in a responsible way, and I can expect responsible responses from them. I need not fear them. I fear the irresponsible even less. Because when it really comes down to it, they've given up. And you'd be amazed at how much power simply being responsible is. And when you came here to the universe and the multiverse, you came here to learn things. This is one of those things. Be responsible. Pay attention to what you're doing right now. Respond right now. Act on an intuition. Act on the knowledge that you have. And respond. Because if you do not respond, you will be presumed to be unresponsive or in a coma, asleep, and they gain power over you. If you respond correctly, then you will be responsible. If you respond incorrectly in a way that does not make sense, then you will be deemed irresponsible or incompetent or have surrendered, at which point you lose all of your power. Power of exercising a right, power of self-determination. And no, you don't get anything that could be presumed as dangerous, like property. So, respond. You're listening to this video. I'm right here in front of you. I'm teaching you about responsibility. Responsibility extends beyond being responsible for your actions. You're responsible for what you do, yes. But you're also responsible for what happens to you. Because if you give up and you surrender, the universe is obligated under law to create sufficient suffering in your experience to wake you up. Are you awake yet? You can't ignore this now that you've watched it. You can try. As always, thank you for being me.